Leading off today. Hey everybody, I'm Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois' 16th District. I just want to briefly say before we get on to everybody talking, with Memorial Day coming up, it's very important for us to remember those that gave their lives in service to their country. As a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, I saw firsthand what that kind of sacrifice meant. And even though this is a holiday meant to focus on the fallen, we also keep in mind those that have served, that still live, those that have been willing to give everything for their country. As we go forward and we make decisions out here and do things, sometimes we can get mired down in the policy discussions. But it's important, especially in a week like this, to just remember why we're out here, why we do what we do. And that's for a broader mission, a mission of America. And that mission is to be an example of governance to a world that doesn't know what self-governance is. This House majority is committed to funding the VA, to taking care of our veterans, to ensure we honor the fallen, and to fix some of the problems with funding that we've been having for our military going forward. So to open it up, just wanted to make that statement. Thank you all for being here, and now I'll turn it over to the Speaker.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks so much, Adam. First, it is important to see Republicans and Democrats come together, as they are this week, to act on reforms to help our veterans. This is the least we can do for our men and women who have served and, of course, for their families. So yesterday, when the VA Secretary compared the lines at his agency to lines at an amusement park, we were dumbfounded. This is not make-believe. This is not Disneyland or Wonderland, for that matter. Veterans have died waiting in line for their care. Clearly, the Secretary's comments were not worthy of the veterans that he serves. But they were also indicative of a culture of indifference at the VA. To date, almost no one has been held accountable at the Veterans Administration for a national scandal. Bonuses are still being handed out like normal. Waste, fraud, and abuse is still rampant far too long. So yes, Secretary McDonald ought to clarify his comments. Just as important, he should pledge to redouble his efforts to fix these problems, as he and the President promised to do.
First, I'd like to thank Adam for his service and all the men and women who have served this country. I want to associate myself with the Speaker's comments. This is something that the Republican Congress has worked very hard on. First, finding the challenge and the problem, moving that even to get the last secretary to depart, but now the current secretary to equate it equal to Disneyland. These are lives, these are individuals that defended our freedoms, and to be treated the way that's being treated is unacceptable. Also on the floor this week, you will find we were back to the appropriation process. We have energy and water. One point I'd like to highlight: the drought in California. I know we have El Nino, but we still have a great deal amount of water going out to the ocean. And there are provisions, because unfortunately the Senate has not acted. The House has continued to act for the last 3 Congresses, passing a solution for California's water crisis, and we'll continue to work for that inside energy and water approach.
I want to thank all of those who sacrificed for our country, and especially when we consider the ultimate sacrifice that so many made. It's something that we all ought to pause and reflect on. If you look at what the VA Secretary said, it really shows how tone deaf this administration is to the problems that are going on right under their nose. It's clear that veterans, died waiting for care. In Congress, we passed strong legislation to hold people accountable, and we haven't seen that level of accountability carried out by the administration. It's time they go and refocus on just what's going on right under their nose, and to ultimately make sure that our veterans are receiving the care that they deserve, that they fought for. Just last week, we passed important legislation, both the NDAA legislation, which prioritizes funding where it ought to be, actually gives a pay raise to our veterans, make sure that they have the tools they need to be successful in carrying out their mission. And then, of course, the Milcon VA bill to make sure that the money is in place for their missions. So it was important legislation and really strong votes. This week we have an important bill, too. We've got the TSCA bill coming up later today. This is a bill that revises laws that are 40 years old and really helps improve manufacturing in the United States of America. So it's an important bill to strengthen manufacturing here at home.
Thank you, Adam Kinzinger, for joining us here today, and thank you for your service to our country, both in the military and as a member of the People's House. I, too, agree that VA Secretary Bob McDonald's comparison yesterday was really unbelievable. When you go to Disneyland, you aren't wondering if you are going to live long enough to make it to Space Mountain. Clearly, the VA is not the happiest place on earth, and veterans have died waiting in these lines. 18% of appointment cancellations go unfilled. We can do better. Earlier this year, Congressman Seth Moulton and I introduced legislation calling for the VA, requiring the VA actually to use off-the-shelf technology that's available today and is used by doctors' offices all across the country to schedule appointments. The way that we show our gratitude to those who have served is to make sure that they get the proper care when they return home. And for those who do not return home, it is to honor their sacrifice and their memory. This coming Monday, we're going to come together and we will commemorate Memorial Day. It's a celebration of freedom. It's also a celebration of the men and women who laid down their lives to make it all possible. And while we may all enjoy a little extra time with our family and friends, I encourage everyone to take a moment, pause, and reflect on the magnitude of this day and the heroes it represents.
I think you've heard the frustration, the disappointment, the disgust from us all this morning that the Veterans Affairs Secretary would compare the wait times at the VA hospitals to the wait times at an amusement park. The Secretary's disregard for veterans is replicated at too many VA centers across the country. Just recently in my home state of Kansas, staff at the VA regional office in Wichita were instructed to enter the wrong codes in order to meet requirements. And in Leavenworth, a VA physician assistant was allowed to retire despite a pending investigation into sexual assault allegations. Fortunately, the House is continuing to act to aid veterans and honor the debt we owe them. The legislation we will vote on this week, such as the Support Our Military Caregivers Act, will streamline and improve vital health care functions at the VA. Right now, our veterans are not getting the health care they need. They deserve better. We are going to keep fighting for a more accountable VA to ensure our veterans receive the health care they were promised and deserve.
Anybody got any questions? Luke.
Speaker Ryan, Senator Blunt is calling on VA Secretary McDonald to resign. Do you think it goes to that level, and do you think he should resign?
I don't know if he should resign. He should clarify his comments and should show some empathy for our veterans that he is supposed to serve. This really is just beyond the pale, a comment like this. It just shows kind of the arrogance of the federal bureaucracy. That's why we're working so hard up here to pass veterans legislation, to pass veterans funding, to make sure that these problems that we're uncovering in Congress, just so you know, it's our investigations in Congress that have uncovered this fiasco. And to show the kind of absolute, these kinds of disgusting comments that show you do not have the proper empathy needs to be addressed. And I don't know how he's going to fix it, but he needs to fix it. Chad.
Mr. Speaker, I know you're continuing to work offstage on these policy goals, task force things like that. Is there concern because of some of the things that the presumptive presidential nominee has said about how he might use the power of the presidency? Does that not square with some of the ideas in the constitutional area, because you guys have had many reservations with the current occupants?
It's a very important question. It is one of our top concerns here as House Republicans is to restore the Constitution, Article 1 of the Constitution. We believe that this president has grossly exceeded his authority. He's not the only president to do that. He's just the most recent president to do it, and he's taken it very, very far. So yes, this is one of the things that we are in discussion with our presumptive nominee about, which are our steadfast commitment to our principles of self-government, which is to restore the Constitution. And that is not only one of our highest priorities of our agenda project, but that is one of the subjects on which we're discussing. Alex.
Mr. Speaker, your Rules Committee concern with that? And do you think that the bill steps on the toes of the work that you're...
Not at all. I'm not familiar with Pete's. You're talking about Pete Sessions? I'm not familiar with Pete's bill, but we have lots of bills. Tom Price has a bill. Phil Rowe has a bill. We've got lots of bills. That's what we do as members of Congress. We propose solutions. What our working group is doing is bringing all of these interested members together through the committees of jurisdiction and through our task forces to come up with a unified solution, and that's what we'll be offering in June.
Last question. Mr. Speaker, how are talks progressing on the Zika supplemental bill, and what timeline do you...
Talks are progressing well. This is what our appropriators are working together on. So our appropriators, that actually Mr. Cole and Mr. Blunt, you mentioned Blunt earlier, they're discussing how to move forward. This is what we do. You pass a bill through the House, you pass a bill through the Senate, then you come together to figure out how to reconcile the differences between the two, and we're having very productive talks on that front. Thank you.